Week one is behind us. Welcome back to the deep end. Mike Shope, Adam Krautwurst, just back from Las Vegas. Somehow, Adam's flight took him to Verona, New York. I didn't know you could get a flight from Las Vegas to Verona, but Adam found one, and he's the lucky one. We'll go over some of the news, what to act on, what not. Some perspective on an amazing week, last few days in Las Vegas, meeting so many great people. A couple of highlights we'll bring up, and then talk out some of the strategy heading into week two. Thanks for watching or listening. Mike and Adam, this is the deep end. Should I have not said where you are? Adam?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now. Should I have not said where you are? Is that fine?
No, that's fine. Listen, I think it's the only place in the world where you can get like a 32-ounce mixed berry Truly. So,
wow.
I mean, listen, it's
is there a sign like at the front of the town, home of the 32-ounce mixed berry?
That's right,
Truly?
flashing. It's a far cry from my trips to Canton, Louisville, and Vegas this last month. I'm in Verona drinking Truly, grinding waivers. What a life!
Hashtag trending up.
That's right. Trending.
You want to talk about drinks? So an amazing opportunity has come my way. Maybe not as amazing as yours. I do commercials for a business in Western New York called Outlet Liquor.
Okay.
And they're trying to up, I think, their bourbon sales. You know, Woodford is a famous name in bourbon. And guess who is your new bourbon ambassador?
Yeah.
This guy.
What is that? Is that mahogany? What is that?
It might be a rich mahogany. So I'm going to show you.
It looks like a humidor or something.
I am to taste these.
Okay. 3
beautiful samples of Woodford Reserve, like different variants, like they're not done yet. And then pick a winner, pick a favorite.
Oh,
and wow. The barrel of that drink. Spirit, if you will.
What's the sommelier of the bourbon world? Is it still a sommelier?
You know, I have no idea. Is there a term for somebody who is an expert in bourbon? I don't know, but look at this box. I'm more excited about the box than the booze.
That's right. You could put all your FFPC, FBG medals in there when you're.
At least I could definitely fit mine in there. I don't know about yours. So we went to Vegas, and just quickly, I want to say the best part is the people.
Yeah,
and I'm so grateful for and touched by the people who have watched or listened to us. And there were a lot of those people who came up to us at the FFPC party, and then through different drafts. Really, Wednesday night at dinner, I know you weren't a part of that. You were drafting instead. And then Friday night, after it was over. Meeting up with the ship chasing guys at that bar and playing beer pong and all that. Just what a great time.
Oh, it was perfect, right? It was. I think we drank some bourbon there too.
You did.
Yeah, that's right.
I can't really sort of let go the night before a flight. Maybe I'll get better, but I was content with the light beer and the Spanish beer, the hashtag Spanish beer.
That's right.
It was. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it was a really great time hanging out with those guys. I had more drafts on Saturday, but the week is incredible. Whoever hasn't made it out to Vegas for the FFPC and even for all the other events, the NFFC, and I did a little bit of the FFWC. Their events were really cool too. They don't draft in a ballroom; they draft in suites. They rent out suites in Vegas, and those are really, really cool. Like a different type atmosphere, like a high roller type thing. So Scott and Billy did a great job with that over there. So just cheers to everyone who was involved.
Cheers to everybody. So the one morning, I guess maybe Friday morning, you were drafting an auction draft with Louis G and Billy and Darren Armani, like there's Pete and Pat and Ben Gretsch. Everybody was in there, and I was allowed to sort of walk around and just take stock of it all. And one conversation that kept coming up through that and then over the course of the day was whether or not there's a advantage to drafting in person. Like we're all trying to win this thing and do our best, make money. But you have online drafts and then you have the live drafts. How do you look at that? You know, you've done this for many years now. Do you feel like it's a harder room drafting in person or the other way around?
It's definitely not harder. It can be as difficult. It also depends on where you're drafting, right? So I forget who I was talking to. It might have been Guilds, who was in a really soft main event draft in Vegas, but he had another really good player like right next to him. So yes, there was 5 soft players in a row, but then the great player next to him was scooping up all of the value. I think the guy ended up with like a Devontae Adams Cooper Cup start, like or Cooper Cup Devontae Adams start, which was the old Guilds looked it up during the draft. It's the only one in the entire main event. So you'll get stuff like that, but you have to be lucky enough to be in the right spot to make that happen. The auctions I feel like are a little bit softer because I just think there's a certain type of edge you can get in an auction if you're good at projections, right? So like I'm not a projections guy, but Draft Sharks is the best in the business. So being able to just draft whoever the heck I want, I think is an advantage in Vegas. And you can only do those in the FFPC in Vegas. Those are not online. And if you've got guys like, Austin's not there, Chad's not there, like a lot of the top guys aren't there. And if they're not there, they can't be in those drafts. So I think there's an edge. There's an edge there. But then there are also some very tough main events too. The high, and I didn't do any main events out there this year. I did a 2,500 auction, 2 $5,000 5K entries and a 3K, and those were not soft at all. Those were one 5K I did was probably the toughest draft I've ever done in my whole life. I was grinding the whole time. So I think the main events can be softer, but some of the other events can be even tougher.
I like the point you made early about you can, and again, it's a relative thing. It's also subjective. Soft versus not. How's that based on? It's based on sort of construction, ADP, what are people doing? How accomplished are they? Do they have the green star? Just different things you sort of use to judge that. And mine with Louis on Friday night was everybody in there was an expert player, like as noted by FFPC. But we were at 8. 8 was the key number of the weekend. Like everybody was drafting at 8. So we were at 8. Yeah. Bare knuckle, I was at 8. And there were picks on the ends that I thought were baffling, but we never benefited. Like it was always sort of ironed out by the time it came to be our pick again. Yeah. And so that was definitely a grind, other sort of nuisances I felt as well happening that night. They had trouble with the stickers and, the bar closed at 7:00 and just different things happened that like, okay, this is not good. Last year on that Friday night draft, it was a dream. Louis and I just had the team. I know Guilds came up to us at the end. He's like, you guys are going to win the whole thing. We didn't, by the way.
But you won your league though.
We won. Yeah, we advanced and won money in the league. That Friday night one, we'll see. I mean, it didn't start well either. I have a couple of Prescott Lamb teams and yikes, right? Yeah. I mean, that's I don't know when we're going to get to CD Lamb. I mean, certainly one of the big, we can do that now if you want. I mean, one of the big developments, maybe the biggest of week 1 is the Prescott injury. I want to think, Adam, that Lamb can still be okay. We're certainly going to start him, and we'll see what happens here. There's no news yet of Dallas adding a quarterback, so it feels like it's got to be Cooper Rush for this week. How pessimistic do you want to be on CD Lamb?
Well, I don't want to be pessimistic because I do have not a ton, but enough of CD Lamb. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, here's the way I look at it. Like you try to talk yourself into it, right? Like, oh, it could be better. Maybe Rush just relies on him more. And I got to be honest, I haven't dove into, well, it's different too. I haven't dove into what Rush did last year with CD Lamb when Rush played, but it was different because it was a different offense and Cooper was there and all that. But you want to talk yourself into, well, maybe Rush is going to rely on him and maybe this, but it's like, okay, if the Cowboys upgraded at quarterback, like, would you be, you'd be excited for Lamb. So if it's a downgrade at quarterback, I wouldn't be excited. Perfect example, late in the fourth quarter, he runs like a go route down the sidelines, wide open for a 60-yard score, and Rush launches it 5 yards out of bounds. So it's like, it's stuff like that Prescott wouldn't have missed that throw. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll give Cooper Rush a week to kind of have the offense under his belt. And, Dak's, they're talking about him being back in 4 weeks. So it's not the end of the world. I'm not excited about it at all, but I think as long as Dak is back by playoff time and you can kind of hold on, you're not going to bench Lamb no matter what. But he goes from, I think, a high-end wide receiver 1 to maybe a mid-level wide receiver 2, kind of from here until Dak gets back.
That 4 weeks business, I don't know. Dallas is they're just an embarrassment.
They are.
Somehow Jerry Jones thinks he knows what all the doctors don't. I mean, that's an 8-week injury, probably. And you wouldn't want to rush him. I mean, he's your most prized investment as asset, as a player. We'll see what their record is by that point too, but come on with the 4 weeks.
Yeah.
With Prescott or Elijah Mitchell,
with
the 49ers, guys that you're looking at maybe half the season. This is something I think about and bring up a lot during the drafts is having players on your roster that you're going to be able to cut. I think I made a mistake in one big draft by not really giving me that out. And the one player who, at least in the short term, that I would need to cut if I did need to cut somebody is Jameson Williams. And just you can't draft Jameson Williams and then do that,
Yeah.
So you've got to win early. Winning early is more valuable than winning late because it sort of sets up the rest of the season. It shapes what you want to do in terms of fab, through the year. Am I good? Am I desperate? Different things. So I don't know. Prescott or Mitchell, would either one of them be a cut for you tomorrow night? And under what circumstances would they be?
Man, I don't think I would. I definitely wouldn't cut Mitchell. And I probably wouldn't cut Prescott either, but I could totally see it. Like, if for some reason you drafted 3 QBs, you could cut Prescott. But again, I would probably end up holding on to him too, because I know you want to win early, but it's more important to win during the playoffs, obviously. But Dak's going to be back regardless. Even if it's 8 weeks, he's going to be back by fantasy playoff time before that. So it's just unfortunate. Mitchell, I wouldn't cut him because I never cut running backs ever. Like, I never cut him. I always pick him up. 8 weeks is a long time. I get it, but I feel like he's probably worth holding on to. And if somebody drops him, scoop him up. Jeff Wilson is my guy there moving forward. I'm thinking to last year when Mostert was the starter. He goes down, same scenario, early week 1. And the next man up was Elijah Mitchell. And we're like, maybe it was just a game script thing. Maybe, Trey Sermon could still be a thing. But the next man up last year, ended up being the guy for the rest of the year. So I'm leaning Jeff Wilson there for the rest of the year. He's probably not available on many waivers for the main events, right? Or even for like the football guys and stuff, because we've had waivers before week 1, right, and people should have been scooping them up. I have a ton of leagues where I took Jeff Wilson and Tyrion Davis-Price. So I've got some teams where I have both, and I'm excited about that. I'm scooping up. General rule of thumb, and we'll talk about this all season, Mike, is never drop a running back and always pick up running backs weeks in advance. Like, you got to get 2-3 weeks ahead of people. If there's a handcuff and you have room, go get them, because you're one injury away from having a guy that's an RB2. Like, if Jeff Wilson is the guy, whoever is the guy, it's probably going to be the RB2. The only downside is Deebo Samuel is probably the starting running back there, and so he'll probably be the guy. But if you're going to start a running back for the Niners, I think it's definitely Jeff Wilson.
They're still not going to give Deebo more than these 8 carries. I think I doubt there's a scenario where he's really carrying the ball, partly because they have so many guys and they've seen or been somewhat interchangeable. So Deebo is this special weapon that they have. And we saw even week 1 this year, they're willing to use it. He scored their touchdown in that game. They're a 10-point favorite against Seattle. One of those guys, if not 2, are getting a lot of carries. Lance struggled. There, I think, are going to lean on that aspect of their team. So it has to include Wilson. And it might include Jordan Mason. I mean, he was somebody I started drafting near the end, and he would have been not like Wilson, but somewhat of a hot pickup last week. They did sign Marlon Mack today, San Francisco. So I don't know what we learned about Mack's, like his status as a runner from what happened in Houston. We had Damian Pierce kind of flash, and then of course they roll out Rex Burkhead for most of their usage against Indianapolis. But I mean, I accepted Pierce as a good running back, good prospect, and it made sense that Mack would get squeezed there. But I don't know if he looked bad. They did sign him to the practice squad in Houston and then cut him. So San Francisco, they're trying to add to the depth chart. Maybe there's a chance that he can still play. And if that is the case, it'll be even more complicated.
Yeah, I don't know if Mack. I don't think Mack has got it anymore. I'm leaning Jeff. Listen, if Mack's out there, put in a bid for him because he's a running back. He's worth picking up. I think it's going to be Jeff Wilson. Debo had what? 8. He had trying to look here. How many carries Debo had? He had 8 carries. He also had 8 targets. Only caught 2 of them. That whole offense. I mean, we're kind of going a little bit off topic here, but are you kind of calling it a wash because of the rain on Sunday for that Niners offense? Because I'm looking like I started Brandon Ayuk in a league where I really needed him week 1. And if Ayuk couldn't get going week 1, no George Kittle, Debo playing running back. I mean, he should have been the wide receiver 1 on that team and did absolutely nothing, wasn't targeted. That's got to be scary.
I have decided to not be afraid of Garoppolo and what happens in San Francisco. He's a number 3 overall pick, and there's a lot to like. The weather and the fact that they lost to the Bears, not a great start. I want to be okay. It's a big week though. I mean, yes. I know Seattle won last night, but you're not going to lose to Seattle and stand pat. I mean, I feel like that they have to avoid turnovers in that game, and maybe they can just outmuscle the Seahawks. I don't know what the deal was with Denver last night. They looked completely unprepared for the season, and I'm choosing to sort of put that game on the Broncos rather than the Seahawks defense. But they did have their moments. I'm going to give the points with San Francisco this week and trust that. I don't think I need Elijah Mitchell to play for that to matter, at all. And we'll see about Kittle. Kittle could still be another week, but I mean, he is such a good overall player that his absence contributes to their other problems, not just because he isn't there to catch passes. He's just the perfect tight end. So a precarious situation with the Niners. But, even going back to last year, I have so much Lance that I probably need it to work to be happy at the end.
Yep. Agreed.
So Dallas, San Francisco, waivers tomorrow. Is there much? I don't know if you have any sort of specific thoughts here, but how active do you see yourself being week 1?
Yeah, I got to. I'm gonna settle in here after this podcast and really lock into the waivers. I got to see who's out there. I think for home leagues too, the Texans running back situation is interesting. Rex Burkhead is not going to stay healthy all year. He's 33, 32 years old. With this type of workload, he's not going to be healthy. I wouldn't worry about him long term. And even Lovie Smith, which this always boggles my mind when the coach says, yeah, we wanted to get him more involved, but it just kind of didn't happen. And next week, like, you're the coach. You guys are calling the plays. How did it not happen? Like, and next week is, we're definitely going to make a concerted effort. It's like, okay, whatever. But Burkhead's not going to stay healthy the whole season. So if I'm in a home league or a league that you can do trading, I would be trying to trade to get Pierce to get the future starting running back there. I mean, not like Pierce looks great, but Burkhead's going to go down eventually, and then Pierce will have the whole backfield to himself. The pass catching is certainly a concern, but I'm still buying Pierce for sure. And as far as the rest of the waivers are concerned, like, just again, buy the running backs.
Yeah.
What do you think about the Chargers receivers situation? I've got some Josh Palmer. You've been a big Josh Palmer guy. Is there anyone else you're looking to add there with Keenan Allen being injured?
I think Jared might have said, don't bother with DeAndre Carter. So I'm not going to bother with DeAndre Carter. If I'm right, I'll make sure that he did say that. I'm not going to, like, Jared does the work. I don't need to do my own work when it comes to that.
That's right.
I mean, Mike Williams, one of these guys like Allen Robinson or Lamb, where, I don't know, man, the chips just fell wrong for you if you had those players on your teams. So, for example, Darren Armani, Fantasy Mojo today tweeted links to the leaderboards from all the big FFPC tournaments. And I went through one by one. And in the Superflex #1, the original Superflex best ball tournament of theirs,
Yeah.
I have 3 pretty good teams. So I looked at that and I was excited, sort of eager to see the team in last place. Like who is on what did, because he's got the draft board. You click on any of those teams and it takes you right to the draft board, which is awesome. So I went to the very last place team and clicked on it. I'm expecting to see just, nonsense picks.
Garbage.
And
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
It was just every bad beat of the first week of the season. It was Mike Williams and Robinson. The quarterbacks were Stafford, Prescott, and Geno even. Like the very last place team out of almost 5,000 teams in that tournament drafted Pierce, maybe, like a draft that made sense. So there's sort of a lesson in that. The randomness of any given week, and week 1 had, Williams was a 3rd round pick. Robinson was a 4th round pick. I mean, there are plenty of people who had both of those guys. I had a main event team that had both of those guys, and Prescott, and the team got smacked. So to your question, you got to be fine with Williams. Nobody got even 5 targets in that game for the Chargers. They're going to play high scoring games. They're playing Kansas City in a couple nights. Fine with Williams. I guess fine with Palmer, who didn't really do much. And after that, Gerald Everett and hopefully Eckler.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Palmer, I mean, he's going to get the start. Obviously, Keenan Allen's not going to play probably and against the Chiefs in the shootout Thursday night. I mean, come on, that could be super exciting. It's interesting too. You're talking about looking at best ball teams. Like I never look at best ball teams till towards the end. It's kind of like Christmas. You open it up at the end and find out where you stand. But I had some time this morning. I was looking at them. It's really cool to see when you have a best ball team that absolutely smashes and like your top 3 players don't even get into your starting lineup. It's like, and so week 1, when that happens, you're like, oh, cool. That's great. But it's super important. In fact, like if that were to happen week 12 or something, like you'd be going crazy that all these guys came and saved your season. They might have saved your season week 1 by having, it's just the timing of it. You're not really paying attention week 1, but I have a couple of teams in the FFPC best ball tournament that scored really well. I'm in first place in 2 of my leagues. And I had a team where I think I have an Eckler didn't play, like a bunch of top players that didn't even make my starting lineup on those teams. So that's really cool to see and super, super important.
We talked about Kareem Hunt a lot. I always brought Kareem Hunt up at our Draft Sharks roundtables. Like I have so much of him. I heard Dwayne McFarland say Curtis Samuel was his top owned player. Curtis Samuel is my top owned player.
Wow.
So I checked Underdog. He has been forever. Like I've always been drafting. Ian Hartitz would tell you, because the one time I was on his show, maybe 2 off seasons ago, like who's the perfect Bills free agent sign? I'm like, of course it's Curtis Samuel. Didn't realize I was talking to a Buckeyes guy, and neither did he. But anyway, I checked an Underdog team, and T. Higgins, Curtis Samuel, Robbie Anderson. Or T. Higgins, Mike Williams, Curtis Samuel, Robbie Anderson. Then you're covered. And may you get the chips to fall that way throughout. Because
that's great for best ball. That is great for best ball, but it's hard. Like I have a ton of Robbie Anderson. I don't have any Jahan Dotson. I see people and again, I don't know if they're talking about best ball or if they're talking about lineup setting, but like nobody started Robbie Anderson. I didn't start him. Nobody started Jahan Dotson, 2 touchdowns. Like I would almost, if I had Jahan Dotson in a lineup setting league, I'd be pissed because I'm like, this is going to be his only 2 touchdown game of the year. And he's sitting on my bench. Like, is he going to score 10 touchdowns this year? No. So it's like, it's hard. Lineup setting leagues, it's a whole different world. Like you have to build so that you can take advantage of those opportunities. Now there's no build that you were going to have that would have put Jahan Dotson in your starting lineup week 1, but it's hard to, it's almost like it was bad time. Like you want Dotson to do that during bye weeks and injuries when you have to play him, not week 1 where he wasn't going to sniff your starting lineup. So it's all about luck and timing, and it feels good. It feels good to have the Robbie Anderson. It feels good right now to have Josh Palmer on your bench because maybe you'll start him in the shootout. But if you're not starting these guys, it's hard to really kind of circle the wagons on them.
Yeah, that's a good point. But those guys do have juice. I mean, Anderson in that offense, they're talking about throwing the ball more. They did it in week 1. at the Giants. I don't know if I don't really need what the matchup is. It doesn't really help my case, but I think that they're live, and I guess that Marshall didn't do anything in this game. It was Moore and Anderson,
Yeah.
and the tight ends don't amount to much in Carolina. And then you have McCaffrey. McCaffrey didn't get the ball thrown his way very often. So, the process is good, though. Like in drafting Anderson, I mean, I'm not saying this because I did it all the time. It's just sort of it works. Here's a guy who's been proven in the league, and there's room on his team for targets. And Mayfield helps, so maybe like that's how it goes in those rounds. And Dotson was a first round pick. It's kind of wild that Dotson had that game with Samuel and McLaurin also scoring touchdowns.
Right.
Like
that's right.
That happened too. So that's a little bit lucky.
Do you know who else scored touchdowns this weekend, Mike? Saquon Barkley.
Saquon Barkley
scored a touchdown this weekend.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say. Saquon Barkley.
I mean, I got him at 8 in the bare knuckle. We got him at 8 in the main event the next night. And
that's the spot.
It's like.
But this is,
okay.
Listen.
Then it's
so
okay.
Listen, we're talking about soft Vegas and leagues. I had my pick in the 5K. We draw cards for draft spots. It went ace 2, 3, 4, 5. I had 6. They went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I picked 6. I picked 6 in the 5K the day before. So I didn't want 6. I'm like, I'm just going to go to my sweet spot. I'm going to go to 8. I'm going to get my guy Saquon, and then we're going to go from there. I'm going to get Saquon, or I'm going to get Stephon Diggs, who I already smashed. 6, Stephon Diggs. 7, Saquon Barkley to freaking – no, it wasn't Austin. But 7 to Saquon Barkley. Like, are you kidding me? Like, in the 5K, man, there was no soft. They weren't letting and I ended up going Jamar Chase. So I can't really complain.
Yeah,
fine. I'm fine. But
that's why you do it. That's why you do it.
Right. That's right. So.
Well, you and I picked Eckler at 5 in pros versus Joes. I mean, not a great week 1 for him.
No, that's a little interesting. I mean, I think he got out of the week healthy, fine. It was a weird week for some offenses. The Denver offense was weird. The Chargers offense was weird. There were a couple other ones that the Rams offense was not good. Allen Robinson 2 targets. It was just weird for I think a lot of and I feel like it was a lot of these offenses that like rested their starters all preseason. We're always like, hey, don't play your starters in preseason. Fine, and they still shouldn't. But just understand that, hey, week 1 that might come out of the gate, bad like they did. Rams with Stafford, Denver, they didn't play in Denver. Yeah, Denver looked weird, but Denver, was 2 fumbles away from blowing Seattle out.
Right.
But,
they looked horrible, but
yeah.
They still should have had it in all kinds of different ways.
Yeah.
One thing I want to talk about with you is tight ends. So tight end strategy, always vital, especially FFPC. You want to figure out how to play that. I mean, I like to try to get one of the top 3, or in this case, this year, I made an exception for Dallas Goedert. Like Dallas Goedert for me was somebody that was worth reaching for in that main event with Barkley at 8. We were hoping for one of the tight ends between pick 9 and then back around those 8 picks, one of those 3 guys to fall. Didn't happen. And then we were scrambling kind of the rest of the night. So really wanted one. Andrews in the bare knuckle round 2, fine. Goddard, fine. You get to that point in the middle where kind of, at least to a point, there's no advantage in picking one after like tight end 9 or so versus tight end 20. That was the consensus this year is you get to that Freiermuth Komet range, and what's the difference between those guys and Everett or Njoku, who would go 10 tight ends later?
Yeah.
Well, week 1 was a mixed bag. I mean, Komet, nothing. Freiermuth, good. Njoku, nothing. Irv Smith, literally 0. He hardly played.
That was weird.
Engram was on the field, but nothing. I mean,
yeah.
Allie Cox, Brevin, Jordan,
nothing.
Pitts up top, nothing. Like a guy like that, you're not touching it. But later on, some of those guys you were really, fingers were crossed that those guys would matter in week 1. You got O.J. Howard scoring touchdowns for Houston, and just like it's what it should. What was like sort of the thing, the key principle about tight ends is if you wait, you are living on the wire, and we're realizing that now if we didn't already.
Yeah. In fact, to kind of go back to earlier, a lot of those early best ball teams that I have random OJ Howard shares, and he popped into my lineup and exploded. But anyways, that was you
Nice.
brought him up. You brought him up, and it was like, yeah, but yeah, tight end is so hard. I mean, the elite. Kelsey's just sensational. He'll always, he's just never going to stop. And so he smashed. But other than that, it was really Kittle didn't play. Waller just missed a massive game. I mean, they missed him for an easy 5-yard out for a touchdown that Carr missed him on. And Jared Smola today tweeted out an interesting thing about Kyle Pitts. Said Kyle Pitts went 7 snaps pass blocking in week 1. He never pass blocked for more than 2 snaps last season. Now, some people might look at that and go, "Oh man, that's bad news." But I look at that and say, "Oh man, he's actually playing tight end now, right? Like he didn't block last year because he was playing out wide. Now they have him in line at tight end, matched up against linebackers where he should be. I'll sacrifice 5 pass blocking snaps more of a game if I can get him matched up against linebackers. Now, I didn't really even get to see Kyle Pitts. I was watching Red Zone. There was never a highlight of that game. There was never.
If you watch Red Zone, you will not know that Kyle Pitts exists.
That you wouldn't know you existed at all. I had my Kyle Pitts jersey
last year, right?
Ready to cheer. I'm ready to yell instincts as loud at the top of my lungs, and freaking Pitts wasn't even there. He didn't do anything. So he'll be fine. He got the route percentage. He got the targets. So he'll be fine. And their offense, they were running Cordarrelle. He's not going to have 2 rushing touchdowns a game. So,
and they were ahead, Adam. Like pass blocking stats, you don't want to see too much of that when they're winning all day.
Correct. Yep.
Well, Atlanta mixed bag. I mean, London came through. Mariota, very nice in a super flex. You were happy if you started. I mean, maybe you faded quarterback and ended up starting Mariota. I mean, that's playable. But Pitts, man, this is a guy that we're just going to. Well, hopefully not. But so far, it's just like, come on, break through the glass. Kyle Pitts, have a game where the game in Buffalo last year, after a season of that, he was doing great. Then he got hurt. So I don't know. Like he's been a guy that you just sort of like waiting for that moment where then he's 13 for 200 or something, like breaks a couple of big ones because you can't even tackle him or keep up with him. That's out there. We would love to see it.
Yeah. And Michael here talks about, the softness of the Vegas drafts. This Thursday one was so soft. You got Kelsey at 7, who we're just talking about. And then God gifted him Barkley in the 2nd. Just only one of 2 of those teams. Just so sweet. He's probably, I don't know how the rest of his team went. And I could probably go, he's got to be one of the top scorers of the whole tournament to be able to get like one of the top running back scorers. Kamara was another one. I'm kind of shooting off the another guy that Saints were weird. Like Kamara doesn't touch the ball. Running back was weird this week too. All the top receivers smashed. So cheers to 0 RB week 1.
I think the Kamara thing is likely to stick because it's a lot of us talked about the player and what he gives you but next to the quarterback and what his strengths are. And, good to see Michael Thomas score a couple of times. Again, they're behind. He's on a snap count. That happened. I don't know. Like Landry had a nice game. Olave will have them. I don't know if they want Kamara. I mean, Kamara is pretty far into his career now. I don't know if they want him to be, getting the targets and the volume that he used to be. So I don't know. Like you can't in a league with trades or anything. You can't really trade Kamara. You have to ride it out a little bit, but I'm not too excited.
Yeah, I think it'll be okay because there's just no. I mean, every time Ingram was any fumbles, huge fumble. Like he's just, why is Ingram even playing anymore? Hopefully the coaches had to learn the hard way now and just give the ball to Alvin Kamara and let him.
Yeah, they got away with the first game. They won. They have Tampa this week. You'd love to see. If they were behind in this game. There was another reason to think Kamara could have piled up some targets, but did not happen. Yeah. So we'll see this week in a game that they should be down in. Who knows? Maybe that changes a little bit. But Landry offers them that sort of safety valve receiver. I don't know. Did they really have that before? We'll see what happens with Kamara. I mean, I have my shares of him. I didn't avoid him thinking this way. The thing with Kamara was the story was his value based on whether or not you thought he was going to get suspended. So I think at the beginning of the offseason, I really didn't want him. And then we started to hear talk about his incident more often, and he's going to be suspended, so you don't want him anyway. Well, that's good. And then he became value, Adam, because then if he doesn't get suspended, there was that few weeks where people knew he wasn't going to, but that wasn't everybody. Everybody didn't know that yet. So, okay, Kamara. See the whole board. And you're drafting a lot. You don't want to get left out on a player. Certainly good enough. Anyway, bottom line is I'm not too excited there.
Yeah, I mean, I have a I have a main event. Well, the Draft Sharks crew main event team with Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara. We lost. It's like McCaffrey had his worst game ever in his career. I think he scored like 15 points. They never gave him the ball. It wasn't like just weird. Again, another player that didn't play in the preseason. Fine, perfect. Leave him. We don't want him hurt, but sometimes these offenses just get started slow, and sometimes they got to learn the hard way. Like, why did we lose? Christian McCaffrey didn't touch the ball. Okay, next week we're gonna get him the ball more. Like, duh. So
we'll see.
We'll see. We'll see.
That collection of running backs is on the older side. Teams want to slow them down a little bit. James Conner came through, got in the end zone again. So in terms of trades, the high stakes stuff, you can't do it, and it's just as well.
Yeah.
In Dynasty, there's a certain Dynasty player. I'm thinking of them as the ambulance chaser type, where your guy gets hurt and they're just like knocking on your door. They want to give you some crap for your player who's injured, and because you're an idiot and you've never played fantasy sports before, you're going to be like, oh, that player is hurt. Here you go. I know this and you probably don't, when it's really more the other way around. And I don't know, like, it wouldn't be good process to 100% of the time reject that trade without even looking at it and, give them the bird. Like that is not how you want to win at this, but that is what I want to do every time. And I can think of certain players, certain names that just like when Prescott got hurt, of course I'm going to get super flex league offers for Prescott. And I just can't say no hard and fast enough. Just never call me again. Never call me again. If you're going to try to give me garbage for my injured guy because you think I'm that naive, I don't want to hear from you ever again.
Yeah.
And so that's just between us, because really I want that person on the hook so that some other way, I want to sweet talk them and definitely not, be on their bad side. But come on. I mean, do you want to respect that person because they're grinding so hard and they really don't care about the relationships? They're just like, all you can do is say no. Or do you want to just like not know them at all?
Can you respect them and not know them? I think you could do that.
Maybe.
So I have a couple dynasty leagues, and one of my co-managers, I have a co-manager in almost all of them. And one of my co-managers is that guy. He's that ambulance chaser. He's that. So I love to kind of watch, I get to see the emails come in because I'm not involved at all. And he's just lowballing everybody, and they're like offended and they're going back and forth. It's just like, oh my gosh, what is going on here? But I get it. I would be that guy that would want to give people the bird for sure. But then you're not imprinting, Mike. You're not imprinting on them. You're not building that relationship.
Your callbacks. That's a hashtag Louis G. Your callbacks are just insanely good. Well, we can't all be brand ambassadors, but that was my version of a callback. All right, sorry. Any final thoughts?
By the way, how'd your week one go overall?
Somebody asked me that on Twitter. I'm like, oh, mixed. I'm thinking, I'm in 200 leagues. You think mixed? Really? A surprise. Right. Good and bad, you don't say.
Yeah.
In the bigger stuff, I got beat. The Dallas thing is a problem.
Okay.
And, even with Barkley and Diggs and Kareem Hunt all over, I had a couple. Did you lose by 0.1 last night?
So I do. So you know me, I don't look at the scores, but I knew the score going into it. And I was doing the math on my phone, and it came out to that I was down 0.1. In actuality, I was down 0.25. And I needed 3 yards or a catch from Rashad Penny or Cortland Sutton with 6 minutes to go. We need to have like a bad beat segment every week, kind of like ESPN does. I think both of us are in enough leagues where we'll probably take one of these every single week. But To have Seattle get the ball with the lead with 6 minutes left, what does Pete Carroll always do? He freaking runs it. And they come out and they throw 3 incomplete passes and they punt the ball away and they should have lost the game. But don't worry, because the Denver's got the ball and they have to pass, and they just never looked at Cortland Sutton one time, and that was it. So that was a rough one. That was in a main event. I also in a 5K, I was the second highest scoring team and lost. But that's victory points though,
Right.
which is great. So I was able to get 2 victory points out of that. But other than that,
you and I, Adam, in the 1K at FFWC were like right there. We needed Penny to, 3 more yards or 3 more points, not 3 more yards, but
yeah.
See, here's the takeaway for me. And Kenneth Walker is going to play in week 2. Carroll said, Penny is good, but I think they're so bad up there against good teams that it's hopeless. So you and I texted about Penny yesterday with this game, and you said we need catches. I'm thinking like, oh, that's bleak. I'm thinking like we need a touchdown from Penny in that game, and that really didn't. They didn't get into a close goal to go throughout the night. It has always sort of looked this way. It makes the Seattle guys really tough to start.
Yeah, and Penny was one of those. So that was as you know, most of my builds are hero RB or even zero RB in those big leagues, and so Penny was one of my better options there as my RB2. So he's a guy that'll be in and out of the lineup. But yeah, it was. I went 14-7 in my big money leagues, which I think is a pretty good start.
Yeah, very good.
So we'll grind from there. I've got a lot of the San Francisco backups, so that's nice. I do have a little bit of Lamb, which stinks, so I gotta figure that out. But all in all, it was a pretty good week.
Player Profiler would have been my best tournament for week 1 results, FFWC, and then mixed in the football guys, 1-3 in the mains. Dynasty really good. I don't know.
Great.
I don't know if that's the competition or if that's just luck or something else.
When you build a good dynasty team, you generally will continue to win. That's why people do it, because they can win money every year with a good team.
I'm going to learn a lot this year about where to put my money. And you tweeted tonight about how you had learned that this year.
Yeah, I did probably half the leagues I did last year, but I did almost twice the money that I did last year. And I just did higher stakes leagues, and just knowing that I don't have to grind. Like I was grinding, like by myself, I was grinding like 40 plus, close to 50 mid to high stakes teams between the football guys and the main events and all that stuff. And I cut out a lot of the mid stake stuff and just entered into the 5Ks and the 2500s and stuff like that. And it's just so much nicer not to have to deal with all the fab. And so, it's not for everybody, because again, it's pressure. It's freaking pressure packed. Like the anxiety on Sundays when you've got 5Ks and like 20, it's a lot, but I don't have the bandwidth in my life to, I've got a wife, kids, a job. Like it's just to be able to grind waivers like some of these guys. I just can't compete.
You're spending Tuesday nights in Verona.
Tuesday nights in beautiful Verona, New York.
They say that's the best time of year in Verona, Tuesdays.
No. Tuesdays in the fall, maybe. Well, it is the fall. What am I talking about?
Just about. Get out there and take one of those canal boats. Take one of those, like those very romantic rides through the canal, see all the sights, all the, beautiful.
I might take a romantic Uber to the poker room across the street. That's what I might do.
Now I'm getting jealous.
There you go.
Okay. So we're going once a week.
Yes.
Through the season. Yes.
Yeah, we're going once a week. I'll be going Mondays from here on out with Matt Schauf over at Draft Sharks to do a weekly recap. I wasn't able to do it this week because I'm on a work trip and I was unavailable. But next week we'll be starting. I'll be meeting up with Matt Mondays to do the weekly recap, which I can't wait to do it with him. And then you and I will go Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever night. Tuesday. Yeah. Perfect. We'll go Tuesdays and give you guys a little waiver advice moving forward and recap the week as well, storylines, and it'll be a good time.
I do a lot of fantasy, or as much as I can get away with, on my WGR show, 3 to 7 p.m. Eastern weekdays. Ben Gretsch, who we hung out with in Las Vegas, will be on this Friday. Gondolas, by the way. I was thinking of Venice, Verona.
Oh, I see.
Gondolas was the
Yes.
word. It's getting tougher and tougher in life to remember the word when I need it, so that's a bad sign. But yeah, I mean, tweet us or tweet the Deep End FF1 with questions. Happy to answer them.
For sure.
Very good. Adam, enjoy late summer in Verona.
Absolutely.
And I will see you next week. And everyone else on the Deep End, Mike Shope, Adam Krautwurst, have a good night.
See you guys.